in the world that we live in today, we kind of have to balance the two. We have to balance the, comics, but also we have to kind of balance the trying to achieve our goals, creativity, but also achieve our goals. And when it comes to making money and stuff like that, essentially, what advice would you give to people that were in our positions about how to stay on course, how to keep focused, how to keep, pushing and keep progressing forward so we maintain on course for the journey that we're on?
Well, I'll just advise them to just stay true to themselves. Definitely just do the type of things which work out for you. Secondly, I would also say create a timetable which you can follow. And thirdly, just stay disciplined. Just keep those three things. Stay true and original. As long as it's original, there'll definitely be somebody that likes it. Having a routine, like a timetable, and sticking to it as well, that will definitely be able to help you see the progress of what you're doing. And having discipline, like the only way you can kind of do what you want to do is just by basically telling yourself, I'm going to do it. If you can't do the other two and not have discipline, because it won't go anywhere.
3, 2, 1. Hello. Welcome to another episode of the Jeoffrey Sarpong podcast. Today, I have with me Timi. Timi, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, man. Thanks for having me. How are you doing, bro?
Of course, I'm doing great, man. We're in the studio again, man. I love it.
I rate the upgrade.
Come
it's looking
on,
nice.
progression, steady progression leads to expansion, isn't it? Like, come on. How you doing, though? How you been, man? How you been since we last spoke?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. Just very, very busy. Got a lot of stuff on my mind, but it's good though, because I feel like I'm getting closer to where I want to be, and I feel a bit more focused as well. Yeah. As if like the path that I'm focusing on is like getting a lot more narrow. So
I could definitely see that, man. I'm seeing like the progression and just like the socials and the stuff that you're posting, and obviously we've hung out and saw each other since then. So it's not like we don't see each other off camera. I'm just saying like it's also always cool to give the audience like an update on like where your progression is at, because I think. And I'll say this on camera so people know how much I mean. I think that you're going to be one of the greats. You're one of the greats in our generation, bro. I think like you're super talented, you're super driven, you have the right mentality for it, and you work hard. We were talking about just before we started about the hard work, and like it's very rare to find someone who is hardworking but can also have fun. And I feel like I really appreciate that about our friendship, that we can go out and have fun. And
no, but it's good. I get what you're saying. Like, we got a good balance of like working. Please cut that out. No, I can't. I was not.
I can't.
No, that was funny. It was funny, but we can obviously be out like. We're out obviously having a good time, but also balancing it with just making sure. And that's why I'm really blessed to obviously meet you, because I obviously feel like, really appreciate for being part of this, but I can also see that you got a lot of stuff going for yourself. And hopefully like we can both reach our goals and like progress together. That's
100%, man. I know we will. I think it's important just to have people like that around you. You gotta move on, bro.
Okay, no.
Time is precious.
True.
But no, I think I agree, man. And I think that's why I'm happy to know you. I'm happy to have you on this podcast. So with that out the way, with that insane intro, I wanted to get into, I think today I want to talk about not just your creative process. And I know that that's a big part of what we've touched on a bit, in past episodes that we had together, but we've not really delved into it.
No, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, bro. I'm so sorry. Like, I'm trying to focus. I'm sorry. Okay, no, I'm taking it seriously. I'm serious.
Bro, this is perfectly fine. This is, you know what it is? This is more real. This is how we actually are off camera. There's no need to change.
True.
There's no need to change. This is more real, isn't it? So it's cool. I appreciate it, actually. I appreciate it.
Cool.
I'm trying to be the one that's keeping a straight face and trying to be like...
Nah, you got it on vlog. I'm being... Sure. You caught me off guard, that's right. Oh, my God. Okay,
I think today I want to talk more about... I know you've been doing loads of things. I know you've been, progressing yourself and, doing so many interesting stuff, but also your story. And I think, like, every time I read your story, I always say, man, that's going to be one of the great stories of our generation, because it does reflect our generation, but it's also super well put together, so much time and effort that you put together on that story. So I want to begin there. I want to begin at your creative process, at your creative beginnings, let's say, right? Yeah. Where did you first... Can you remember your first memory of you trying something creative? Was it with the Dragon Ball story that I've read, or was it with something even before that?
Well, it actually goes back way long ago, a good 10 years ago at least.
Go on, tell me about it.
So it was back in like year 2. I'm actually surprised I remember this. Like, I was in year 2 just drawing comics with my mates. and we always used to just draw like our favorite characters from like our favorite video games and stuff as well. So we decided to make a comic of it. Like I'd go back home, draw some, and then just bring it back to my mates. Then my mate would then do the same thing, and like I don't know, I kind of was like off and on when it came to art, but my creative process kind of like stayed the same. I always had like this whole kind of story in the back of my mind. But I never really pursued it. But then there'll be times when I was interested in art, like every few years or so, and then I kind of dip in and out of it before I started kind of like hammering onto it. Probably when I was like 18, 18, 19, but I started taking it seriously like around early 20s, so about 22, 21.
What made you start taking it seriously at that age, early 20s?
Well, I was in university and I realized that I was graduating and I wasn't really like pursuing a career I was very, very passionate about. Obviously, I was still getting like the grades that I needed to get through, but I just thought like in the long term, is this really what I wanted to do? And I was also going through a phase where I was just like watching all these, you know, those cliched like motivational videos where like don't fall into the matrix. So like, I was like, I see a lot of people kind of making it as well, and I'd be like, yo, they're actually doing stuff they like some of my friends producing music, like rapping, performing at different events and stuff. And I was like, let me just kind of pursue the comic thing, because especially with comics as well, not a lot of people are doing it. It's obviously blowing up, but I just saw it as like, this is kind of like something I'm passionate about. I actually enjoy drawing. I've got a story at the back of my mind, so I might as well just kind of like utilize it rather than just making it just an entertainment.
What were some of the first like initial challenges that you faced? Like it's just even like obviously, so you decide you want to do this. It's not that easy, right? Just because you decide you want to do it doesn't mean everyone around you now agrees, or doesn't mean the motivation is there. It's like, what were some of the initial challenges that you faced in being consistent early on with the creativity?
One of the biggest challenges I faced was kind of making time for people. A lot of time I found like myself kind of having like arguments with just different people, parts of my relationships, and it really kind of just, at the time I felt like, oh yeah, like I need to invest all of my time just working, because I always managed to find it easy formatting like a timetable to actually do work, but I think I got a bit too obsessed with it, and because with that goal there was obviously certain consequences which I went through, but because of those consequences I ended up learning that everything's all about balance. I'm still trying to obviously maintain that now. Obviously it's not easy for anyone, but once you kind of end up like sorting that out, it's pretty sorted though.
I know we've spoke about that before. I know like the balancing is hard, and I think I had the same kind of journey in the early beginnings for me too. It was like, okay, once I decided that I wanted to, I'm trying to think, what was my first it's my first idea of creativity, like while I was doing something seriously, was the writing. So when I was like 18, 19, I wrote this like screenplay. So I was like super big into movies. I wanted to be a movie director.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, I'm going to be a movie director, but to do that, I actually want to write the story. So I wrote the screenplay, like really badly put together screenplay, but it was finished, and I finished it. It took me like 6 months, but I finished the screenplay. It was based off something that I watched, and then, but it didn't go anywhere. But that initial kind of sitting down, thinking of this idea, thinking of, okay, watching all these videos about how to put together the story, that was like when I really started doing creative stuff in the beginning. And like, that was so important for me, because looking back now, even though I didn't pursue that down that path, it made me aware of like the effort that it takes to do anything.
Yeah.
Like just, 6 months of just consistently doing it. Like you were saying, like finding time and to do that, and then other people, not really spending time with other people, because I was like, I actually want to do this thing more, And like that process really did help me. Now that I'm looking back and being like, okay, I learned so much. What was that like for you when you first started? I guess, you said you had that story in the back of your mind. Let's say it was Dragon Ball Boy or whatever story you had. Like when you start bringing it out and actually spending time and building that routine to allow you to spend time on that work, what was that process like?
Well, it was a weird thing. So it kind of started in university during like my dissertation, so like late uni. But I divide my time basically like doing uni work and then also writing my story. So I'd basically do like a good 4 hours of uni work and then like probably an extra 2 hours of just like writing my story. And it first started off with me just basically doing world building and character writing. So I'd sit down in the library, basically just research different types of continents, and then I'd basically look at like the geography and like the etymology, I think that's the name of the term. It basically looks at the background, like the original names and all of these background information on different continents, and then I'd actually just start writing them down into like different documents. So like, for example, I'd have one continent based off let's say the United States, but then I'd name it after like the original name for the continent at like a time when, just like a different time zone basically. And then obviously I'll come up with like different types of like
Was that fun for you? Like, I don't interrupt back and see, like, because I remember what that process was like for me. Was that, did you enjoy that process, just kind of learning so much about different continents and stuff?
yeah, like, you know what the thing was, it was a very new thing for me because I never really paid attention to a lot of stuff like that during like my year 8, year 9. But I just started teaching myself, and it ended up becoming more of that kind of a hobby. And now I find myself sometimes watching like random videos on YouTube where it's like, did you know this, did you know that?
I feel like as a creative, especially as a writer, that's the best part. I mean, like, it's the hardest part, definitely, when it comes to like writing anything, because you have to find new ideas. Essentially, how do you find new ideas, new names, new concepts? You have to just learn the current ones, and you have to really learn it to a level where most people wouldn't take it that far.
Yeah.
You know, so like I remember when doing my masters, when I was coming up with my story, I was writing a story about war, so I had to read all about Sparta, I had to read all about the Romans. I was reading war stories, and like back then what the wars were like literally like step by step how the wars would take place. And I'll be like, okay, cool, this is how my war's gonna take place. I need to know how they would and how that end. And like, what was the terrain like when they were fighting? Okay, they had this river here. What was that river called? Okay, they had this little village here, and like building that in your head. What was that like for you? And was that like was that process difficult, or did you find it easy?
It was like, well, it becomes easy when you enjoy it, and I'm guessing you can relate, because it's like, you know, when you're just saying like, oh yeah, you basically had to research all these other courses. It's like, it's basically research. It's like homework, but it's homework you're setting yourself to do and that you enjoy. And I also wanted to add as well, it's like, not only was I just doing world building, but I'll come back home or back to my uni yard, and I'll just spend like the next 3 hours just sketching, doing character designs and stuff.
What was the most, because so you go from that thinking, okay, I'm going to do this thing now, to now you wanted to become an actual creative. So that's the next step, is sharing the work. Was that difficult for you? What was it like when you have to actually share your work with other people?
Honestly, I felt like I was very overconfident. Like, I just basically just drew as much work as I could, and then I'll just show my mates at like, especially at like at house parties and stuff. But because I'd be hosting it, I'd just be like, "Yo, check this shit out." And
that's so sick.
But now, like, it was a sense of confidence, but I felt like it was also false confidence because obviously, like, the work I was doing was good, but it wasn't at its best. And on top of that, it's like when you were asking me like, how did I feel about it at the time? It was genuinely just a lot of yeah, I've done this and this is good, but now I'm like, no, I can be better.
Yeah.
I mean, better,
yeah. That's so interesting, right? Like before, when, because I'm the same way. Like, I look at the stuff I've done, and I'm like, before I thought, oh my god, this was like when I was doing it, I was like, okay, I might have done something. I want to show people. I think for me, it was difficult for me to share my work, maybe because of the content, because obviously it's poems and it's super vulnerable, it's super personal. So when I wrote it, I wouldn't show it. I'm laughing because the first person I would show was a girl. This girl I was chatting to, this is the first person that I've like actually like sent, because she was also a poet, and she was like, oh yeah, she was encouraging me to do it, and I was like, you know what, fine, I'll send it to you when I've done it. And that was the first initial one. And I think without her, I wouldn't have even started sharing it, because I knew, because I had to get over that fear of sharing it with other people, and I think it helped that person understood what that fear was like. That they were like, oh yeah, like it's cool, like you can do better, but like this is a good start.
But did you not want to show? You just said it's because it's like personal. Was it more of like you didn't want people seeing that kind of perspective of you? Is that what it was?
I think, but it's a little bit of that too. I think definitely I didn't want people seeing that, because it felt like you had established relationship with your friends, like they know you come out, you clown each other, whatever. I was basically giving them free ammo. I was giving them free ammo to clown me, man. It was crazy.
No,
so it was a different way. I was talking about life, I was talking about upbringing, I was talking about girls sometimes too, and it's like at the beginning, I guess you still care what people think of you. And so it was like, okay, cool, like, okay, how do I get past that? And that was like the initial thing. And like, once I did, like, I started sharing it with friends and it became easier. I was like, okay, cool, I just start sending it to people. And their reactions was like, it's funny because like, they react how they react. Some people was like, this is amazing. Some people was like, it's good, alright. And like, did you get that too, or was it different for you?
Nah, you know what? I think initially when I used to show it to people, everyone was like, "Yo, this is hard. This is hard." But I think half the time it's because people were like waved. So, so like I was bare gassed, and then like, I started deepening it. Like, oh no, like did they actually rate? But then I can't lie. Afterwards, I started showing it to people when I was sober, and it's like, I'll be honest with you, I got a lot of people rating it, but then a lot of people like, yeah, you can definitely work on this. But I was more thankful to hear that because, like I said before, when I showed my artwork, I was confident, so I thought it was perfect. But when people actually started criticizing, and not in like a negative way, just being like, oh yeah, this looks this and that, I was like, okay, cool. I started writing down the things that I needed.
They were saying, yeah, that's when you start taking it really seriously. What was that process of taking it from like going from like you were making mistakes to actually now you started actually getting better and better and better? Like, you know, for example, let's take Jagabon Boy. Let's take the story of Jagabon Boy that you've created, and I think is one of the great stories.
Oh,
like, what was that process like refining that kind of work? Would you do it and then share with people and then refine it, or would you just keep refining it regardless and not only show it to people like when you felt they were ready, when the arcs were ready and stuff like that?
I think for me it's like I kind of always make notes of things when I'm writing stuff. So for example, if I'm not very happy with something, I'll probably just make a note in like this app called Trello, where you can just basically put like random notes of like things you want to change. I'll put it in that specific chapter section and just be like, okay, Zeke said ABC, and then it's like I'll come back to it when I'm basically gonna wreck on it. I don't really have that issue with writing the story because I already know how I want my story to go out. I've been like planning it since I was like 16. So it's like I kind of know how to avoid those plot holes. The only issue, but I can give you an example. I've recently been doing tutorials on my TikTok page of showing like.
Shout out to the TikTok page. Look at it in the description.
Hey, down below.
Check down below. Check it out, bro. We're doing that now. We're doing that, bro. Yeah, sorry. Go on.
No, but yeah, the TikTok page. So I was having issues growing it. It's not even on like a crazy situation right now, but long story short, I was basically not getting as much views, and I was like posting every single day, like actually different content of like speed draws of like some of the sketches I was doing, like the digital ones. And I realized that like the reason I wasn't getting views was also because of some of the things my friends were saying. Videos too long, music's not too popular, all these small things. So I started studying the algorithm, learning like the best times to post, like how long the video should be. And then I ended up making like a timetable. Next thing you know, I started seeing my views getting like double the views I was getting, double the likes I was getting. Page started growing, like getting different followers each day. And like now it's just basically revision. Basically, like most of the issues I face is just something that I'll just be like, okay, that's gone wrong, let me revise it.
So you revise you have an idea with your favorite routine or a plan to initially put it out, and then you will keep revising that until you get it correct. And then you listen to other people's feedback because obviously you're humble and you actually want to grow the work.
Yeah.
And then you can incorporate the feedback and get better and better that way.
No, 100%.
What are some of the kind of like, let's say, I'm trying to think properly. Yeah, what's some other advice you would give to struggling artists? Like, say someone is like in that perspective where they're right at the beginning of their kind of their journey, where they thought of an idea, we have this really cool idea, like you said, think about this idea since you were 16 years old, and now they actually want to like take it to the next step. And for them, that next step is sharing it with people. That next step is sitting down, getting a routine, you know. But they're facing doubts, you know. They're doing it. They're not getting the same responses from everyone else. They thought they would, you know. People care, but then they don't care. What's some of the advice you give to people on how to get through that kind of period of creativity where you're kind of alone in your vision and you're kind of struggling, but you know that it's going to get better?
I feel like they should just basically do everything as trial and error. But the advice I could probably give is just genuinely like putting your stuff out there, asking your friends and like even people who are not even into it, just ask what their opinion is. Because at the end of the day, if you want your thing to grow, for one, it needs to be able to have a fan base, but also get some sort of recognition from people who don't know anything. Like if you go to somebody who doesn't watch anime, you can still ask them like, oh, do you know who Goku is? And the only reason why that's the case is because it's like it's been kind of refined in this situation where it's like they've kind of just been like, okay, what do I do wrong, and then how to avoid that. So it's just basically like trial and error, but also asking and being kind of like socially aware and I guess just aware kind of.
Okay, cool. I think it's so interesting. I completely agree with you. I think like the idea of the struggling artist or the struggling creative, especially in our day and age, you know, like right now everyone's kind of terminally online. So you can, if you want to make something, you can. Because all you gotta do is make the thing that some one person will kind of like relate to, will kind of like, you know, like the way I think about my work, I think about even the podcast is that I'm making it for my friends. My target audience is people like you. My target audience is only my friends because I know I have the coolest friends, first off.
Yeah.
Like they're the people who do the most with the best taste. But also like I know that if I can get someone like you to like it, then I can get another person to like it. But I don't know the other person. I know you. I know what your interests are. I know the things that you know that you relate to. So if I target that, then that's more of a tangible way for me to improve and get feedback from you, you know, and then vice versa, you know, because I think like you know, we'll go back to Jagabon Boy, but I feel like the fact that you made Jagabon Boy, you made that with the idea of mandem in mind. You made that with like mandem as the target audience because it's understandable. Like, you know, like I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Who would you say that your story is for? Who is the target audience?
I'll be real. It's like I can definitely I can see why you'd say that. I think it's kind of mainly, if I'm gonna be brutally honest, just people who are into like, just comics and manga. Mainly comic and manga. Yeah, so definitely appeal to like probably the manga, maybe like just a variety of people. But the reason why I feel like it wouldn't just appeal to them because it's like, for one, it's like it's kind of just more of like its own thing, but it has that element in it. Because I don't want to make it be like, oh yeah, this is what it's like. It's bro, I don't even know what it's like. I just kind of used an idea of it and then incorporate it because it is something that I've at least kind of been like seen around. But it's kind of like I just want to make it very its own thing, but it has elements of reality into it. And another thing as well is that because of the area where it's based, it's like I'm going to do different types of continents, and it's not continents but locations. And with that, I'm going to obviously do traveling, so I can use that experience to then make it a bit more marketable for everyone. So yeah, it could be for the mandem, it could be for like the Galdam, it can be for everyone. But at the end of the day, it's mainly for comic and manga fans. But
what? Let's go into that then about comic and manga fans. I think what was it about comics or manga that drew you to it? Like, what was it that initially, when you first read your first comic or you saw your first manga, that you thought this is something I like, this is something I enjoy?
Honestly, I think what was the first comic I read? That's a good question. I can remember a few. There was like a Beano comic, like Dennis the Menace. Then I read like...
Damn, Dennis the Menace. That sent me back. Damn.
You know about Dennis the Menace,
come on, man. You know Dennis the Menace, bad man. Real bad boy. Real OG bad boy, Dennis the Menace.
That's crazy. But no, that man was on a madness. Like, but nah, my mum used to get like Beano books from like Tesco's and stuff. Like it's like the annual ones. So like I just read them because I was always into just like animated... I wasn't into reading as a kid. I just loved looking at pictures and stuff. Then like my dad brought me like World War Hulk, and when I started reading that also got me gas. But I wouldn't say I got inspired to start drawing it until like I said before, with my friends as a kid. Like my friend just bought like Dragon Ball Z for like PS2.
Were you more of a manga or comic, like specifically? Was it, or did it not matter? It just like
it started off with comics. But then it went to manga. Like,
okay.
I started off with comics because my dad used to bring them. But then when I went to Nigeria, like everyone was just banging out about like anime and shit. I was like, yo,
really,
like,
it's big in Nigeria.
Yeah, man. Like we used to watch like Naruto in boarding school. I'm not even
That's
joking.
crazy,
like,
really.
Yeah, man. Well, actually, like,
was it obviously in English subtitles though?
Right? Yeah. It was like English subtitles. But like one of my mates used to just bring in the PlayStation 2 and then we'll play PlayStation 3 and then we'll watch it on that ESPS 3.
Oh wow!
And then also play games on it as well.
That's so sick.
Yeah.
It's international, man. All right, so if I had to ask you the question, what is your let's do comics first, right? Comics and superhero movies and just that genre first. Are you more of a DC person or are you of a Marvel person?
Yeah, definitely Marvel. I have to say Marvel.
Why you say Marvel? And like even in comics, you say Marvel also?
Yeah, like you know what it is? It's like I just started off with Marvel, but DC has good storylines. But I think the only thing that I really like about DC is mainly Batman.
I would say DC have the better characters.
You know what the thing is like, I feel like the ideas and the origin stories for DC is very, very interesting. And
Yes,
I like
yeah,
it.
that's what I mean. Yeah.
But I think that, you know what the thing is that everyone's got their own opinion and I can respect it. But I feel like, for example, it's like when I think of DC, the only people that come to my mind, first of all, is just like Superman and Batman. Obviously, you got like Aquaman and like, he's been doing
Justice League, no?
But that's the thing. When I think of Justice League, I just think of like Batman.
Superman, Batman.
Yeah, like.
But Batman that's a pretty amazing superhero.
Oh no, that's why I feel like DC is very, very close with Marvel because like Batman, I feel like personally for me is carrying DC.
That's what I'm saying. Is there any other Marvel superhero that's better than Batman?
Oh, better than Batman? I mean, what as in? Okay, yeah, I'll probably just say Wolverine.
You think Wolverine? You love Wolverine? Go on. What's about Wolverine?
I feel like Wolverine is just the most interesting, like, well-written character. Like, his whole concept origin story is the fact that he's somebody who's been growing up since, like, the 19th century. And then it's like he's gone through all these different kind of world wars. But then it's like he's also had, like, a lot of character development from being, like, an innocent character to then going through, like, a feral kind of mindset. To then kind of being humbled and, like, taken in by, like, Charles Xavier. And then you see all the stories that kind of go on after it. And it's just pretty interesting to see like how he's kind of retained some sort of a similar type of mindset as well. Like the main reason why I like Wolverine is just like when I kind of look at like the rest of like the Marvel characters, I think of them because of their powers and like their popularity. But when I think of Wolverine, I think of his story. Like,
well, then what do you think of how he's been depicted in the movies? Like obviously, so you have him in X-Men, but you have him in Logan. So I think Logan was one of the best superhero movies I've seen. Like it was just like it's such a different. You might disagree, but it was such a different way to view a superhero, as in like it made him like I think is kind of what you're talking about. We humanized him, but he was still a superhero. Yeah. But I don't know if he was like that in all the other X-Men movies. What do you think about how a character like Wolverine has been depicted in movies?
I feel like in the movies they've done a very good job of obviously getting the actor Hugh Jackman. Like he obviously always managed to land the role. I think the overall movies itself, the early X-Men movies. X-Men The Last Stand to me personally was my favorite one, but
which one was that?
That's when they started like fighting on the Red Gate Bridge.
Okay.
And
wait, was this the one where Jennifer Lawrence is in that one, right? She's
Oh no, that's First Class.
That's far okay, cool.
No, but that's like the next. Those ones actually, First Class was actually really well done as well. But I think the thing with the X-Men movies, like at least the first three, is the overall plot and like the way. It just seemed like, okay, we've got these actors playing these characters, but the plot and the story was kind of mid.
That's true, yeah.
Compared to like, if you look at like Iron Man's one, it's like it had elements of the original like comic, but then it's like watching what's a good show that kind of, it's like, you know, The Boys, where it's like it deters from the actual comic, but it's still writing a good story.
Because it keeps the elements of the comics that which made it successful.
I mean, it's that, yes, but it's also the fact that it's still doing its own thing. Like when people look at Iron Man and then see Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, like people say like, okay, like that's RDJ's Iron Man. If you look at Captain America, it's like Chris Evans did a good job of doing that. But then it's like, if you look at like the rest of the X-Men movies, the only people you can think of is Hugh Jackman. You don't remember like, what's the brother's name who did Cyclops?
You don't remember exactly the point. I don't know.
I don't know. You don't remember like Halle Berry being like, what's her name, Storm and that.
Storm, yeah. I remember because obviously Halle Berry in it.
Yeah.
But okay, here's a before we get sidetracked again. What do you think is the best superhero movie? And why?
Best superhero movie would be.
I'll give you a couple seconds and think about
Black Panther. No, I'm joking.
Really?
No. I think it's hard, but I
Wakanda forever.
Yeah, come on,
you got it back to Africa.
Fresh out of Wakanda. No. I'll probably say like.
It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's break it down. Okay, we're talking about just Marvel, right? Because I don't think there's any DC movie that was even be up there.
I mean, the Batman, Arkham.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Batman trilogy, Dark Knight.
Dark Knight. That's what it was called. Yeah, I was thinking of the games, but Dark Knight. That one was called. No, I'll definitely say.
But is that a superhero movie or is that a good movie about superheroes?
No, but that's a superhero movie. That's my point, because it's like. That's what makes a good superhero movie. It's the fact that it actually seems different. I feel like a lot of people feel like superhero movies, it has to follow a formula, but if you incorporate that superhero idea into a story, and then it can be something else. It can be both a thriller and a superhero movie.
So say we compare what we have in Avengers Infinity War, the both obviously Infinity War and Endgame, and what we have in Dark Knight. Those two are such different movies. Like I feel like Infinity War is a great superhero experience, a great movie experience, and maybe it's a good movie, maybe it's like a above average movie. You know, I thought it was a really good movie, but I thought it was a good movie, but I didn't think it was a good film, if you know what I mean.
I agree with you. I don't even think it was a good superhero film. I don't think it was bad. It was definitely very, let's see it like this, the budget was well spent. I just think like the concept, like you said, was just very...
Yeah, it was very superhero. It was very like theater, and that's kind of the point. You know, you have that crazy ending, you have that engaging villain, you have all these crazy characters, so many characters, all of them coming in, and they did well to like cater to all of them, but it didn't feel like a personal movie about superheroes. It didn't feel like, obviously the Batman, compared to the Batman, was like, you know, you have him being chucked on a thing in the right at the beginning of the, you know what I mean, and he has to kind of build himself back up. It's like a character study movie, you know. And I think that you mentioned before, I think that's how superhero movies really shine, because I think the element of, let's define that then. What would you say, if you were to make a superhero movie, what would you say would be the most important thing you'd focus on? What makes a good superhero movie for you?
I feel like it's the development of the character. And like, I just wanted to add to your point. You know how you said that like Logan's your favorite movie? That's part of the reason why it's like, I feel like that's what makes a good story. When you see the development of a character and you kind of take away, you see it like this, it's a hero movie, but it's not cliched. It's basically following the literature format of writing a story. So it may have development, it may have thriller, have romance, all of these different types of like themes are incorporated to write its own story. And so your question was what makes a good superhero movie is having the origin story, but also the development blossoming into one of the themes. Maybe it be romance, and then seeing how the romance has an effect of him being a hero, or maybe the I don't know, let's make it a thriller. He has some sort of PTSD cause that makes him a hero. Or maybe the development, maybe he's learning to become stronger, or something like Invincible. All of these different themes kind of make something stand out rather than making them a cliche. And
Then do you think then we've reached a stage where, for example, with Marvel, because it feels like now they're on the downward spiral. Do you think that's because they've neglected that aspect of superhero movies where they started off with that in individual movies? For example, Iron Man, you know, the first couple Iron Man movies, it was that exactly what you just described. But now it's become a thing where it's become such a big movie experience in the cinematic universe that they've lost touch of that. Do you think that's why they're on the down, or do you even think they're on the downward slope?
I feel you're right about Marvel's point. It's not because they got a big universe, it's because of the way that they're kind of like displaying the characters in the universe. Rather than kind of giving them actual individual kind of themes or just developments, they're focusing on waving the character in the air and saying that this character is part of it, but they don't really have anything that makes them grow. And to be fair, I haven't watched enough of the new Marvel movies to make a fair opinion, but I did watch Shang-Chi, and like Shang-Chi was a good example. I feel like the concept of Shang-Chi was very, very interesting. It had really good visuals, but the only issue it lacked was it was too fast-paced for it to kind of delve into the sincerity of like certain character motives. Like, obviously I'll spoil it, but there was this one scene where it's like he basically just like leaves and chooses not to come back to like his original clan. And it's like, instead of him kind of just being like, oh yeah, like there was some sort, instead of him kind of like expanding on the fact that he's kind of gone on that, he's kind of left his clan, he's kind of just been like, he hasn't really explained it as much. That's what I'm really
exactly. It's kind of like they did it for there's a plot point, like they're touching plot points, like boom, boom, boom. They can move on to the next thing. But in superhero movies, you're supposed to spend time developing these because you have to pay it off. I think that's what makes it so interesting too. Because for example, if we take it to like TV shows, like I think nowadays there's better TV shows, superhero TV shows, than there is better movies, because TV shows, they're allowed to spend time with them. Like you mentioned, The Boy, like The Boys, they can spend time with these characters and just really delve in over and over and over again. You know, sometimes the character would do it good and then the next episode will do it bad. And again, like that's actually creating that relationship with them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, here's a question I had then. What do you think superhero movies are going to end up? Like, what do you think is the future of superhero movies? You mentioned about how, like, they kind of lose in touch with the original idea of what made a really good superhero movie. I believe anyway. Do you think they can bring it back up? How do you think it's gonna end up?
I feel like it has a few kind of possible futures. One of my ideas is like, I feel like what's gonna happen is like maybe Marvel might just stop doing the whole movie thing and then just see what other. They might end up just picking up on what other independent kind of like superhero movies are doing. So for example, it's like, look at something like The Boys. The Boys was like an independent comic. Well, actually, you know, I'm not gonna say too much because I don't want to get the information wrong. But long story short,
bro, you can check whatever. It's Waffle House over here.
It's not even Waffle House. It's just I'm trying to remember what I'm trying to say, but I'm trying to think of the right way. But all I'm trying to say is just that The Boys isn't part of DC or Marvel, and it's got its own kind of theme that kind of makes it work.
Yes.
Or like even
I know what you mean now, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like I feel like they can also just kind of just pick up on like just other kind of series as well. So for example, you look at something like, I don't know, like Breaking Bad. I'm not saying that, oh yeah, that could be its own superhero movie, but what if there was like a hero that ended up, or like some sort of character that went down a similar path as Walter, where it's like he ended up getting so much power, but then it goes to a downfall. And this is seen in a lot of like, especially like gangster movies you're seeing, like Snowfall, the character rises then falls, Power.
Snowfall's a banger, by the way. I don't want to interrupt you, but Snowfall's an absolute banger.
Exactly, bro.
Of a TV show. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. So
no. That was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree with you. I think like it's. I think the turn of it probably will be to try and mimic these indie studios who take more niche ideas and try to build on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's so many different types of shows that could also have like superhero elements. Like this might sound very, very bizarre, but like I recently watched like the original, like not the original, but you know, there's Planet of the Apes.
Mm-hmm.
No,
so wonderful day. I'm sorry.
No, that shit was so funny.
What a wonderful day.
He was going crazy with that shit, but nah, man, like, but I think it's just the overall idea of it, and it's like, see it like this. It's like, for example, you can look at someone like Caesar's journey, where it's like you can see it kind of like similar to a hero, where it's like he leads his own people out of like the captivity of the humans to create his own nation. Then he ends up dying being a hero, and it's like. That in itself is what kind of makes a story kind of stick out at the end of the day. Just basically 100%. Having a theme and then setting it. And it doesn't need to even be like under a specific genre. So
100%, I agree with you. I think it's I think even with superhero movies, there's a beautiful Batman quote. It's like you have die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Yeah.
I think superhero movies are seeing themselves become the villain because they're not dying heroes. They're not understanding what it means to actually take that idea of a movie and take it properly. But another thing I wanted to talk about before we wrap up was the idea of entrepreneurship. And like, because I know not only, and I think I'm fascinated by this idea, that nowadays creatives aren't just creatives. They are creatives, but they're also entrepreneurs because they understand the mechanics of how to get their work out there to people. You know, they understand, okay, I can create the work. You were saying, you know, have an idea, you know, drawing, but also understanding, okay, how do I get it out to people? Because we are now using social media as levers to get our work to people and you know, and push that. And I know you talk about you're on TikTok. I know you're on Instagram. I recently also jumped on Instagram too because I've been convinced by a friend of mine who's also on Instagram, and she was like, yo, like you got to get on because that's where the people are. Like the people you're trying to reach, there's this idea, because I originally had this idea that, you know, they were, you know, not the kind of people I wanted to get my work to, but like there's no such thing. They're just people, and you can target it to certain individuals if the work is what you want it to be. So I say that to say, I know that you've been trying to branch out into different avenues, and one of the avenues you've been branching out into is I guess your clothing brand. Do you want to talk more about that? Like just also the idea of entrepreneurship, but the idea that where you start seeing that you can do more than just make the work, you can actually take it further. And if that's connected to this idea, the clothing brand you're trying to build also.
Okay. Well, sorry, can you say the question again? Because I'm
trying to ask. I was a long-winded one. To simplify it.
Yeah.
Where did the idea of trying to build a clothing brand came from?
Oh, okay.
And also, what's the plan of that? If you have a plan, or what's the idea behind that?
Okay, no, yeah, of course. So the whole idea with the clothing brand really stemmed from just pretty much coming up with a way to kind of like push out my story, because I know that releasing a comic isn't going to be like the easiest market to obviously grow.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought to myself, what is another kind of like creative and commodity that I can do, that I can basically get the fan base from there to end up coming towards what I'm creating.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought to myself, okay, let me make a clothing brand. And obviously with the name of the clothing brand, as well as some of the designs, it's going to have some sort of relevance to the story which I'm writing. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously when people initially buy the clothes, they wouldn't even have an idea maybe initially, but when I eventually release my story, I'll probably put in little not even Easter eggs, but usually when you do write comics, especially in mangas, they have like these little author notes where it's like you can kind of
like references. You can actually just say it to yourself, but yeah, you can have references in that.
Exactly, you just pretty much got it, and that's what I'm pretty much going to do. But I felt like I also realized with the clothing brand as well, it's like it gave me a new skill. Even though it's not like being fully established, I'm still working, but I've learned a lot of things. I learned, first of all, how to kind of like get into the business world, like you said, entrepreneurship. And it's like, I'm really trying to figure out what the best way would be to like, obviously get into the marketing side of like, obviously the comics aspect. So it's kind of like a training for me.
How do you, on marketing side, how do you market your like, you think about it, how do you market your brand? Obviously you're trying to build a brand for who you are, but also for what your work is about, you know, like you said, that it kind of encapsulates the clothing brand, also the work itself. How is your thinking around that? Like, are you trying to be a brand, or are you trying to market your brand, and how are you trying to do that?
Well, I'm trying to just basically, I would say I'm trying to be a brand, but I'd say like the way I'm trying to market is, for one, just pretty much just creating my own fan base. And then after that, just pretty much making connections, collaborating with people, obviously working on things with other people, because then it's like you can obviously then do your own thing, also meet new people. And then obviously the more I feel like, not even connections, but like just kind of like the more you're refining your own skill, the more, I guess, polished and like, I guess, the products of what you're trying to develop will kind of like end up standing out as well. So it's just refining and connecting.
I agree. And I think I relate to that too, because I think like for me, that's what the podcast is about. Like initially, like it was never about me. I mean, at the beginning, anything you do, you want it to be about yourself. But when it started getting good, I realized it was not about me. It's about the people that I'm meeting, about the people that I'm bringing on, because like they're all creative, they're all doing their own thing, and I want to celebrate that. I want to get them on and be like, yo, tell me about this thing you're doing. You know, I think that's really cool. And obviously, I'm doing my own thing too, and this is part of the thing that I'm doing. But I think like the idea that there's a community, in which I always struggled with in London too, because I don't know if people are as collaborative as I would hope. You know, do you feel that, or do you not agree?
No, I do get what you're saying. I feel like people, at the end of the day, it's like that a lot all over the world. But I do feel like in London, it's like you'll find more people who are competitive than collaborative. I feel like in order for you to be able to get to that point where you need to cooperate with someone, especially in London, it's like you need to have like not necessarily a status, but give them a reason or an incentive.
To actually do it, yeah. I was going to ask, on the topic of entrepreneurship, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced in your journey, and how have you overcome it?
Pretty much everything. I
know what you mean.
But in every aspect.
It's literally every aspect. It's crazy, isn't it?
But like, I'll probably say the biggest thing is just, I think just understanding. Actually, I don't really know. I think the main thing would just be timing, because it's like, I used to think everything I'll do, like for example, finding the manufacturer would be difficult, but once you kind of know how to look, and then it's not even that hard to look, because there's just so many ways you can kind of access it, like social media, all of these things. But yeah, I'd probably say the main thing for me would be just kind of like balancing my time, because I find myself doing so much things right now that it's like it kind of slows down the process of what I'm trying to do. So yeah, I'd definitely say timing, both managing and then duration. You know,
I saw this amazing quote. It was like, I can't complain about having everything on my plate when all I want to do was eat.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I think I relate to you so much. I've reached a point in my life where I have so much to do. I have so much things that I have to get to. I feel like if I had a twin, everything would be fine, because I could just do two things at once. It feels like there's not enough time in the day for the things I want to do. But then often I think back, when I reminisce, I think back to like me 5 years ago. And here's a question, actually. What do you think you 5 years ago would think about you today? You know, of all the things you've accomplished, all the things you've done, you put yourself out there, achieve your goals, all the things you've actually, put your mind to and actually accomplish, they would have been like praying for. I think certainly my position is that that's why I feel like 5 years ago, I would have wished I'd done all the things I'm doing now. But I'm here thinking ahead 5 years from now, and I think like that cycle of always never feeling satisfied. And I think about this a lot too, about success. It's like, how can we have success without satisfaction? Like I'm never satisfied with the position I'm in. So even if I do achieve the success that I want, I think it's not success because I'm not satisfied. Yeah. Do you relate to that idea? And what do you think about also the idea that you 5 years ago is looking at you now thinking like you have everything I ever wanted?
Well, I'll be honest with you. When I look at myself 5 years ago, like, I don't even think I would have started thinking of doing all of this, because it's like, that's the thing. It's like, when I said I was trying to obviously do the comic thing, I didn't take it seriously, and I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. I was just kind of like living in the moment, just doing like uni. I didn't think I would actually be like, okay, let me try and jump on a podcast and like actually be working with somebody trying to do something.
Yeah, 100%.
The other question you asked was it how?
So yeah, how do we balance like the idea of achieving success when success doesn't bring us satisfaction? Because we always want more. You reach the goal and then you think, actually, I want more. So how do you like even have success in that way?
I feel like recently that's a good question, because that's something I've been learning recently. But with this one, you just got to be honest with yourself and see what you can do. And then whatever you set yourself to do within, I don't know, a 3-month period, work towards it and complete it. Give yourself a break, then go back on the other. And just be very, very honest with yourself, because like, I basically just spent like the first year just plowing through, and as much as I got a lot of work done, it was mentally draining and physically exhausting. But then recently I started being like, okay, 3 months I do this, then I take a break, and it's like, it's so much better. You complete more, and you also manage to balance your time better with the people in your life.
I completely agree. I think that's something I'm learning too, and I think we spoke about this, and because I used to be like focused, grind, because I needed to, especially when the podcast first started, I needed to get as much momentum going as possible. So I had a routine. I never broke from my routine, and I'd always stick to it. But I think nowadays I'm more like, you know what, the work will get done. There is no rush to get the work done. Yeah. Obviously, you have your own, you don't want to be too lazy. So I have my own internal time limit that I set myself. Every week I got to post a video, or like I got to do this. But in terms of doing it, doesn't need to be a kind of like a, I don't need to be so hard on myself for not completing it. I think that's kind of the balance, because sometimes you're too hard on yourself for not completing it, and it doesn't do any good, because it's not like you're gonna not do it. You're still gonna do it. It's just you have that mental and internal monologue, which is probably not good in the moment.
Yeah.
So learning to really balance that, learning to actually balance the fun aspect of it. It's like to link back to a question that I wanted to ask you, which I was talking about yesterday, that I've been thinking about lately. We'll probably end on this one. Do you think do people love you for what you do, or do people love you for who you are?
That's a deep one still, but no, you got a good question. I feel like people love you for what you do, definitely. And the reason why I say that is because in any sort of relationship you have, even with like your family, it's like there's still some sort of expectation that comes to you, whether it be like bringing like some sort of providing role, or like some sort of like, I guess like not necessarily pride, but how you present yourself as it, because it's like you hold your name. So it's definitely what you kind of like give out. Nobody gets anything for free. So, and I feel like especially in this world where it's like you have to work for something, it's like in every single relationship you have, there's going to be some sort of give-take relationship. And it goes back to what you're saying, especially like when you said in London, it's like, oh yeah, you find it difficult. But that's just genuinely the mindset of how humanity works. Probably the only people who get things for free is like maybe royalty. And even that, it's like there's still some sort of expectation that comes from them, like running the world and all of these things. So,
see, like I kind of agree with what you're saying. But I want to think about this for a second too, because if you think about it, then, because I know I've mentioned too, because I was discussing this with a girl, and she was like, well, if you are what you do, then of course they love you for who you are. Like if if there's no difference between your actions and who you are, then of course they're gonna love you for who you are. Obviously, you are right. There is a reciprocal relationship you have with everyone. So if you do something for them, they're gonna do something for you back. Maybe it's not immediately, maybe it's not transactional, But of course, they're not gonna. If you're a stranger, they'll treat you differently than if you were their son. Of course, they feel that kind of relationship with you. But I often think about this idea because I think especially for people who do stuff, I've kind of felt this too myself. It's like when people give me praise, I think, well, are you praising me or are you praising the things that I do? Like, are you like, you know what I mean? Like, if they go, oh, bro, you got a banging comic, bro. You're so sick. You did it. It's like, well, cool. Like, but is it me that you're saying is got a banging comic, or are you just saying, oh, the comic is good? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
No, I get what you're saying, and it's like in that aspect, they're basically saying the comic is good, and the reason why I'm saying that is because you got to look at it like this. It's like you are who you're your own person. You're always gonna have flaws, and you're also gonna have good traits, but it just depends on how you carry out your actions, which will then obviously depend on how people reciprocate it, which is why I'm saying it's like people love you for what you do. So yeah, the girl's right in saying that, oh yeah, what you do, people will love you for what you do. But it's like, you got to see it like this. What you do is, at the end of the day, is overall an action, and that action will be then taken in. And depending on how you carry out that action, whether it's a good action, people appreciate it. Just like if you do a good comment. If you do something bad, people are not going to appreciate it. And obviously, that's where the irony comes in. You know what I'm trying to say?
I get exactly what you're trying to say.
So
I think, but the next step then, the deeper question is that, do you love yourself for what you do or for who you are?
do I love myself for what I do or for what
That's the question I was asking myself.
Oh, no, I see what you're saying.
That shit, that's deep as fuck.
I feel like everyone... Nah, that's a good question, but I feel like it would definitely vary at different ages and different people, and it depends on where you are at your mindset. I feel like at this moment in time, I love myself for who I am, but for what I'm doing, I'm not happy with what I'm at. But it's like, at the same time, it's like, it's just more of the fact that it's like, I have the decision to obviously take myself out of it, which is why I'm saying I love myself for it, because it's like, I know I can see that perspective. Some people may be in the same position as me, but if they're not able to see it like that, then they can now say like, oh, I don't love myself. So it's all a mindset thing. If you can set your mindset into the right place, then you'll be on the right track. There'll still be difficulties, but you just have to overcome it and handle it in this right, sensible way.
I completely agree with you, and I think that's probably the best way I would put it. I don't think there is an answer to that question. I think it's an evolving question. I think you're right. I think for someone like me, I love me for who I am, but I'm also getting to a point where I really enjoy the things that I do. I really enjoy the things that I do, and I think that's an important part of who I am. The things that I do, because it proves to me that I'm able to do things, do hard things and accomplish it, and do complicated things and actually achieve my goals and achieve my dreams. And that is a big aspect of who I want to be and who I am, so that it does kind of feed into each other. I think learning that as I go and know and being like, okay, there doesn't need to be a separation with that idea of like, okay, there's one or the other. It's trying to mix the two, balance the two, so you get to a stage where there isn't, you don't feel like you need anything from anyone else. You don't feel like you need praise or you need validation from anyone else. Yeah. You're just good as you are. I mean, I think that's something that, as creatives, as entrepreneurs, as just guys in this generation, we have to all figure out. I think that I'm so happy that you are one of the few people that I know that can have that perspective that you just spoke about, be able to figure that out, and balancing that. You're thinking deeply about stuff, but you don't need to get too caught up in the deep stuff. You're just like, yeah, it's cool, whatever, but I'm still gonna do the work, and I think that's a good balance to have. Yeah,
100%. And like, likewise, man. But I feel like that's why we're obviously able to like work together and obviously do things like this. But no, I'm really blessed, and I appreciate for that I'm on this thing, man.
I appreciate it, man. Like, now we're looking at the time, because we were supposed to be here for an hour, and the time is bouncing, going really forward. But I didn't want to close out with going back to Jagabon Boy, because I know we kind of sped through that. But just to finish out, what are some of the... Because I wanted to ask you about Zeke's character and how you came up with that character, because I think it's such a unique character that I think when people read it and read his progression, I know you've told me more than I've read, but from what I've read, when people read his progression, they'll be able to learn so much about how to conduct themselves in the world that we live in. And I think it's such a good way to present a character. It's like when Eren was, first put out. And people were like, oh, Eren is just, just brat as a beginning, but he's not a brat. He becomes this deep character who has morals and like, you know, weird morality, and, you know, he kind of puts his friends above everyone else, and you see him kind of go through that journey. I think Zeke has that kind of potential.
Yeah.
So I wanted to just close this and talk to me a little bit about the idea for him and what he represents to you and what you think people can learn from his character.
Well, so what Zeke represents to me, Zeke basically represents just the character who's coming of age. He's somebody who grows up from being a young 17-year-old to eventually, like, I'm not going to confirm the age, but an adult. And
True Nigerian, age unconfirmed. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself.
There you go.
I couldn't help myself.
Funny, bro. Nah, don't stress, man.
Go back.
But yeah, and sorry,
I'm not serious. That's why I didn't want to do it, because I was like, he's going off. He's gonna have a good. I'm gonna disturb his train of thought, but I just couldn't help myself. Essentially, yeah. What can people learn from the character of Zeke, and why? How did you come up with him, and what does he represent? I think he represents something. But what does he represent, and what people can learn from that?
Yeah. So overall, Zeke's character, like, He's basically somebody who represents someone who shouldn't hold on to the things that he shouldn't dwell on the past. He's supposed to be an example of like what could happen if you hold on to something and then allow it to cloud your mindset, and also just take control of like the actions you make. And I'll probably say one of his biggest inspirations was actually kind of just like a mixture of obviously several other characters which I'd see in different types of fiction, but also just like myself as well. Obviously, it was very easy. See it like this: whenever I'd write certain scenarios, I'd sometimes see it like this. It's like, how would I mentally react in a scenario? And then I look at the sensible way of handling it, and then like the negative way. And then from there, it helps me be able to develop like, okay, this is what could go wrong. And then I can write a certain character, certain point, story point that ends up leading to a certain destination. If that makes sense.
It makes sense. So essentially, you use him as a way to use yourself as a way to write Zeke, as in like what would, as he's a character who would either act similar or differently depending on the situation that you put yourself in.
Yes.
And then you kind of build that as in like depending on his surroundings and the story that he's going through in the story that you're writing, and then you use the story as a descriptive of maybe different ways you act in different situations.
Yeah, and the reason why I use myself was because, see it like this, I realized when I watch series, it's very easy to get like a cliched kind of character. So it's a lot easier to write a character where it's like, for example, except for people who actually know me, nobody really knows me like that. So if I then write a story, nobody would then be able to predict, oh, this is going to happen, or he's going to go and do this.
Absolutely, yeah.
And on top of that as well, when I also write like a story character, it's not like, oh yeah, I'll definitely go and do something like that. But see it like this, it's like if your friend told you like, oh yeah, something happened, then you're like, oh, if I was in that scenario, this is how I would do this. Yeah, do you get what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
It creates a different alternative of the story compared to the one which your friend told you. But at the end of the day, you can write your own story based on placing other people as well as yourself in like certain scenarios, I guess.
And I think that's so interesting too, and it's important because like you humanize the characters too. Like Rohan, like I've said many times, they feel like people I know, feel like my mates, and the fact that you can tell because there's actions stuff like that too. It was so funny. There was one point where they're doing this. They're waiting for the next people to fight, and I think he sees these girls in like training gear, and then he looks at her back, and he's like, "Oh, okay, damn." And I'm like, I started dying. Like, I'm reading the thing and I'm dying because I'm like, it's a serious moment. They're talking about all these characters, you know, the fight and all this crazy, and then it just imagines just like him going. Just taking a double take, and he's like, "Yo, actually, he's got back," you know.
Nah, yeah, you know, it's just so funny because it's like you see all these like characteristics just in that other people as well, and it's like I would just see shit like that happen in real life, and I'm just like, oh yeah, imagine if it actually happened in like sort like
100%. I think it never changed that because I think that's what makes it unique, and I think that's like look, I'm talking about it now. I remember that scene. And it's like every single time I read it and I see that happen, I relate to that because I'm definitely Zeke in that moment. But also it's like, you know, it's a cool, unique, original thing that your characters are known for, you know, and it's like, it's really impressive that you can balance the two, you know, balance the, which what I say is from Mandem, not because I think, you know, but I feel like people are like, oh, that's definitely me. I'll be like that in that situation.
No, 100%. But I feel like that's what kind of makes like a lot of stories kind of like iconic as well. It's
absolutely.
Like, you look at the original Spider-Man, it's like, I feel like it was even though it's very, very far fetched, it's like your typical high school movie where it's like, okay, a lot of elements are very over exaggerated, like the bully, but then it's like probably some people could also relate to that. Or maybe it's like, I don't know, maybe being like the smartest kid in class and then like getting the highest grades. You know, all these random characteristics and traits are all based off stuff we see in everyday life. And I just want to make it relatable to people.
And I completely agree. It's really relatable. Okay, let's wrap this up. So, final two questions. First final question. I don't think.
No, it's not the time. Go on.
First final question. What are you most looking forward to in this next 6 months? For all the stuff you're doing, you talked about a lot of things today. What's some of the stuff that you think the audience should be looking forward to coming out from you?
Well, this is all just plans, like it's not fully thought through. But first thing, I want to try and start looking at like actually drawing out the panels for my story, because I've already written like the first 3 arcs of my story. So I'm confident enough to actually like draw the stuff and then probably start posting like just 3 panels on the actual page. On top of that as well, I want to start looking at potentially like hopefully dropping like some clothes and more designs. And yeah, we're just seeing from there. But everything, it just depends on how things play out.
Nah, man. I mean, obviously, God willing, but I feel like the ideas are there, and I've read a lot of your story. I want to read all of it before the next time you come on because I want to discuss it properly.
Of course.
I'm so much looking forward to that clothing line that you're talking about. I think that's going to be amazing. I think everything you do is really creative and really, really inspiring to me too. To see you on your journey, it's good. It's great. It's good to have friends that are actually doing stuff, and it's like I'm there to support you whenever you need me. So I'm 100% there. And to finish off, what's some advice? Because obviously you've, like we talked about today, about all the stuff that you're doing. And, you know, we gave advice to I guess, comics at the beginning about figuring out their kind of journey. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs, I guess, about figuring out this part of it, which is like, you know, in the world that we live in today, we kind of have to balance the two. We have to balance the, you know, comics, but also we have to kind of balance the trying to achieve our goals. You know, creativity, but also achieve our goals. And when it comes to making money and stuff like that, essentially, what advice would you give to people that were in our positions about how to stay on course, how to keep focused, how to keep, you know, pushing and keep progressing forward so we maintain on course for the journey that we're on?
Well, I'll just advise them to just stay true to themselves. Definitely just do the type of things which work out for you. Secondly, I would also say create a timetable which you know you can follow. And thirdly, just stay disciplined. Just keep those 3 things. Stay true and original. As long as it's original, there'll definitely be somebody that likes it. Having a routine, like a timetable, and sticking to it as well, that will definitely be able to help you see the progress of what you're doing. And having discipline, like the only way you can kind of do what you want to do is just by basically telling yourself, I'm going to do it. If you can't do the other 2 and not have discipline, because it won't go anywhere.
100% agree, man. 100% agree, man. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for coming
man.
today.
Thank you for having me as well. It's been
always, man. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you so much, brother. Thank you, and thank you for watching. We gotta run before we get kicked out. All right. Until next time. Peace.